Heretic of Zata, in banishment answer. Can the Orokin ever be forgiven?
He spoke in truths. A devil has come.
Solen Lua, we will cleanse this follower. Hawalap sit snel kliwi, haudnelos.
Maxa rovetta. Slushni kotsi.
As a devil for forgiveness. When Rell is a lie spun by madmen.
Hey all, Siege here today. Well, today I wanted to take a look at the Devil's Triad in depth after finally getting a chance to sit down and really consider what I was seeing, in order to provide some additional context as well as analyze exactly what's being said and who I believe it pertains to. The implications of the update could be pretty groundbreaking, but that's still contingent on the understanding of how Alberic's work with proto-frames and time function within the game. Within this short preview, the estranged, at least at the moment, Alberic and Trotty, questions a banished Uriel on if the Orokin, I imagine as a whole, can ever truly be forgiven for the ails they brought upon the Origin system in their quest for power and control. Flanked by Wisp and Harrow proto-frame variants, Uriel tells us,
what need as a devil for forgiveness? When Rell is a lie spun by madmen.
And I feel like there could be a lot to unpack with this dialogue. Consider that we really only have one person in-game who consistently uses the term Hell. And that, of course, is the former Orokin executor and creator of the Warframes, the elusive Ballas. But we'll get into that more in a bit, because the most shocking portion of the reveal is presented using something called backmasking, a trope commonly associated with what many used to consider satanic messages in popular music of the day. The Satanic Panic, as it was known, analyzed the music of many of the popular rock groups at the time, and by spinning a record backwards on the player, typically LP and EP types, long play and extended play respectively, the needle responsible for picking up sound would produce, in most cases, the typical gibberish of hearing language and music played in reverse, but with some odd cases, were instead met with what most assumed were hidden messages, ones that could only be interpreted by the unconscious, supposedly putting nefarious ideas in the minds of the time's youth. I personally have experience with this, in fact. When I was a younger tenno, the pastor at a Baptist church my family had taken to attending produced a cassette that was offered to everyone that was interested in having a copy. This tape provided questionable utterings within songs like Revolution No. 9 by the Beatles, Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin, or even another one, Bites the Dust by Queen, through the process of playing the song in reverse, and in some cases, like Hotel California, the message was apparently front and center. This was the premise, but the actual validity and effect it had on the day's youth is, of course, more subjective. That being said, it did beg to question the coincidence of at least some of these occurrences, always having me wonder, if true, was it done to indoctrinate or just to generate publicity? One thing I feel like I can't argue with is that it was definitely an interesting time to be alive. Of that you can be certain. Now, It's really up to you what you believe regarding the matter. But what I want to impress upon is the idea that it wasn't supposed to be considered a natural phenomenon, rather an active choice of the artist to include, and within the Devil's Triad's second trailer, we see this exact concept supposedly playing out, insinuating, amazingly enough, this message, the actual trailer itself, was doctored. But by whom, you may ask? Well, considering the messages presented as only discernible by watching it in reverse, it implicates, well, DE, who makes the trailers. And in conjunction with the 1999 ARG, where we are introduced to a reality where the man on the wall is actively manipulating the players themselves in the real world.
Congratulations. If you are hearing this message, you are now the best hope to thwart an existential threat against your species. I do not have time to care who you are or why you stumbled into this unsavory business. But the messages you have decrypted thus far were left intentionally. This was, you are, my failsafe against this old, dead-end experiment. The solution is simple, but requires the addition of a signal not found in your reality. Unfortunately, our connection will remain interrupted until you cancel the busy signal. All you need to do is hang it up.
As well as the supplemental information regarding Digital Extremes, the tech rod of 1999, and its ability to live within code itself, becoming a pliable medium to contaminate any system in any dimension, merely through the movement of, let's call it, poison data. Will this fourth wall break develop into something more than it did last time? Well, considering many never even experienced the ARG themselves, you could make the argument the concept it was hinting at back then is now being addressed, even being reinforced in an actual trailer, and with that could be preparing us, not the Warframes, the Drifter, or Tenno even, rather us the player, to have some role in the story as before. More than controlling our characters in game and making all their decisions and stuff. The kids possess the frames, we possess the kids, you get it. So, back to Hell. While others use the term loosely, it's been a staple of Ballas, who has continually referred to it when describing the Tenno children after the Zariman accident and their subsequent return.
You cannot kill the devil, Tenno. But you can send it back to hell.
And it all ties into the most interesting aspect of the entire scene. Of course, being what Uriel has to say.
What need has a devil for forgiveness? When hell is a lie spun by madmen.
First, is this Orokin protoframe telling us what Ballas considers hell really isn't the case? Being a protoframe and given the Entradi connections, it's quite plausible he has already had some interactions with other Tenno. This Father Leon Allard and Marie LaRue are by all rights completely different entities than that of the original Harrow and Wisp Warframes. But that's largely based on the limited amount of information we currently have. At the beginning of the Hex quest, when each of the protoframes making up their squad are introduced, it's revealed that they are humans purposely injected with specific Helminth class IDs, taking the form of the Warframes we've come to know, each of which provided with a biosuit with matching aesthetics from the corresponding frame, showing them not fully converted to a Warframe in the traditional sense, and as such, still retaining their personalities and, more importantly, self-control. Do they feel some aspects of the original human that was used to create Helminth strains like Excalibur or Nyx? Like the Drifter claims they experience? Old habitual movements that specific frames were known for? Well, at the moment, it's not entirely clear, but I would say the exact abilities of the infested Dax soldiers they were derived from, our 4 powers, have absolutely translated, so it's quite possible the further each are turned, the more likely the characteristics of the original body may come into play. Which, in itself, is kind of sad and begs the question if keeping them all in 1999 is also keeping the infection of the Technocyte at bay. Time essentially resetting for really everyone but the Drifter with each passing year, and may in fact explain why we haven't yet made a significant push to bring them from Hulvania to the Origin system, especially considering, at least for herself, Kaya has already achieved the goal. Do these new proto-frames now share the same fate? Perhaps more intriguing is the potential connection they have to the actual Harrow, the Chains of Harrow, and specifically, Rell. I know I'm not alone in wanting his specific tale to be fleshed out more. While absolutely one of my favorite quests, it certainly left a lot to desire as far as any kind of closure is concerned. Quite a few substantial notions were introduced that really were never paid off. Concepts like the actual connection between our Tenno and Rell. He specifically asks us in that quest,
"Why are you helping me? You hated me?"
I've personally had my theories on the matter, but it does force one to ask if, in the Rell comic, was the Tenno who forced him out of the group. His red eyes emphasized here, seeming to insinuate an operator either under the influence of the indifference, or was it the indifference itself wearing our operator's face, separating him from the others? Further, do we ever actually even see or interact with the real Rell at any point during the Chains of Harrow? Palladino herself seems confused in multiple situations, and given what we know about the indifference, how it likes to pose as others, even taking on aspects of their host personality in order to sell the disguise, well, Whispers in the Walls open quite a few doors down a few equally crazy yet plausible rabbit holes. And with all that new context taken into consideration, I even now question the end of Chains of Harrow, where we supposedly release Rell into where exactly? The Void? Heaven? Hell? We don't really have any concrete records of a Tenno actually dying. And even if we did, factoring in their general nature, their void bodies, powers, not to mention where it came from, can they even die in the conventional sense of what we understand? The operators seem almost impossibly resilient. So what exactly happened? Even if it was a chosen outcome, I merely question the logistics of it, and with Uriel now bringing the concept of an actual hell into the equation, as well as insinuating that what is known about it may not exactly be the full truth, or any truth for that matter, well, to me, it very much seems like he is in fact saying hell is welcoming. Imagine that. A devil attempting to convince the world that hell and sin ain't so bad. I feel like I've heard that one before somewhere, almost insinuating current doctrines on the matter, sculpted by the Orkin, are in fact not accurate, according to the mind of the newest proto-frame. Mind you, that doesn't necessarily mean this hell isn't a horrific place. Rather, it's just somewhere he, portrayed as a devil himself, finds agreeable. And that doesn't necessarily make me feel good about what hell is in the Warframe universe. Maybe even more concerning than all of this information is he appears to insinuate, no matter what it is, that hell does in fact exist. And this adds all kinds of interesting correlations that could in fact be drawn. Consider the Lotus after the Lotus Eater's update.
Do you hear it? The calls of angels, devils, life itself. It's grown so loud. It tries to follow in his footsteps through time. You must find him first.
The mark that death stained upon her.
Even if I help you, even if by some miracle you succeed, she will not be the same. Even for us, death leaves a mark. Do you understand?
She seems to have changed significantly, now offering a myriad of revelatory statements at the Sanctum's cliff, with this one in particular now seeming more eminent.
The system is changing. We are changing. If I become something you do not recognize, do not mourn.
And, I believe, has given the term, and by extension the actual place, depth for perhaps the first time, as she curiously watches the silhouette of the Vitruvian form of the Indifference, seeming to be always just below us here. Is its placement a coincidence, or just one more supporting aspect of the continually materializing reality that we are in fact dealing with true hell, and Uriel has just accepted, dare I say embraced, his place in what the madmen call purgatory, even potentially being right below us, like the devil underneath the bed so many children have lied awake, petrified of.
How I love listening to your sweet prayers every night. And then you jump in your bed, so afraid I was under there. And I was.
Perhaps we may even get some level of clarification on why exactly Margulis rejected Rell over all the others.
I don't understand. How would Rell know about the dream?
Great sentient queen, forgive me. But what you are, what you've made of yourself, is merely drawn from the dreams of these divine children. You are not she. You are not Margulis.
What are you saying? That Rell is a Tenno? Impossible. All Tenno are known to me. I protect them, as she did.
Oh, but not Rell. Margulis cast him out, for he was different. Our foremothers took him in and studied his teachings. We became the veil, the shroud of his blessed existence.
Cast out. I don't believe you.
The inclusion of a single frame portraying a blinded Margulis in the TennoCon Tau reveal may hopefully be finally offering a true explanation as to what exactly happened in the initial interaction she had with the Zariman children. I must confess, the concept of an orc in Protoframe who can shed light on so many vague and unfinished story threads is incredibly intriguing, to say the least. What stories would you like more information on? Can you think of any right off the top of your head? Now, Albrecht lets us know Uriel was banished. But by whom? Entradi? The Orcan? And why? Was it something he did or associated himself with? Or was it a punishment levied without him actually doing anything to deserve it? Something the Orcan did quite frequently, and perhaps is the reason he appears so defiant in his response to Albrecht. Being cast out himself, along with his connection to the harrow Protoframe especially, but also Wisp, both of which appearing at first glance as religious figures that originate from a completely different place than the rest of the Hex. Well, does this infer some underlying tie to the narrative of Chains of Harrow, as well as provide evidence of a completely different plan Albrecht had in mind for them? These in particular not slated for some association with the vessel, rather addressing his purpose, countering the indifference from, say, another angle. Warframes don't just make themselves, as far as we know, so the question will continue to remain, how did Rell get his? Perhaps Father Leon can elucidate. When exactly did Albrecht pose this question? Is this some kind of recording, a scene from the past, or instead in the now? And if that's the case, where is he? The last definitive sighting came during the Hex Quest itself, when he and the Drifter were sent to the derelict Zariman. Is this the same Zariman as the one we've been taking residence upon with the holdfasts? With this whole scene simply happening in another area of an otherwise enormous colony vessel? Or were we on some other variant? Another eternalistic Zariman, where the indifference holds complete sway? Even while consistently calling out,
"I've seen enough, Albrecht!"
Albrecht is nowhere to be found until the very end, accompanied by some very familiar growling as he instructs us on what needs to be done to save the Hex.
I was too slow.
He's ash in seconds. No need for misery. Come, now. Murmur expelled. Tau is in sight. They've given their lives for this. Make it count.
Just go.
No. I can save them.
Not unless you know them.
Will we come to end up finding he has in fact been captured once more? Or is he still somehow eluding the indifference to this day and has been forced to consider something he really never had to before? With the question he postulates to Uriel, can the Orokin be forgiven, may insinuate in his mind there may not be a way to fix this anymore. And perhaps worse, that Uriel may have some connection to the indifference that he would even be able to answer. Unfortunately, at this point, we don't have enough to determine the actual time when he recites this question, so if in fact it was in the past, everything we see in this iteration of Tau may be no more than memories. And as we've seen in Warframe, memories are in fact no less real today than they were as they occurred, and therefore by the laws of eternalism, accessible. And I must confess, more and more I'm beginning to believe that is what was shown at TennoCon. This place, using the Lotus's helmet, can access realities that were not selected for. That what's being seen through what appears to be a combination of the Tenno and the Lotus is eternalism in play. What could have been had a different decision been made, and what's happening is the operator is essentially living out this reality to ascertain some aspect of its possibility that can be useful for whatever plan both she and Lloyd have concocted in combating the indifference. Because if accessing 1999 can affect our reality as it has appeared to do, then maybe whatever we find here can be utilized in a similar way. Of course, we should consider what we potentially let in the last time we did something like this. Do you remember, kiddo? Considering the language Entrada uses during the quest towards the Drifter, I have to believe whatever plan he had originally considered for both 1999 and the Indifference was altered once our own intentions shaped the conclusion in a different way. But consider this place was supposed to be somewhere the Void couldn't access. And this hidden interaction found at the rear of the subway either tries to show the player the Indifference has in fact found a way in, maybe longer than we can even comprehend, as this message we get in whispers from the Netracell could be centuries old, or it implicates our operator as its way in. It's interesting that Lloyd doesn't necessarily explain to us what will happen when we interact with the console on Albrecht's desk, and the idea that the Lotus feels it necessary for the operator to stay out of 1999.
You, my champion. Please, drown out that noise that beckons. If any other answers the call. No, it has to be you. Our paradox,
I wonder why the same kind of restraints were not exhibited before. It's absolutely feasible. Lloyd didn't know, and with what he claims when we return, it does seem the Void was involved here. So long story short, could a similar thing happen to Tau? Personally, I'll be searching the area thoroughly for our dark twin, so I just have a feeling we're going to see him in there in some way. With all the symbolism surrounding the devil, hell, and its relation to the Void, could this be the reason a demonic ram has taken over in Tau, and that it all had to do with our operator being the one that originally let it in all those years ago? If, of course, this connection functions in any way like the ones described between our timeline in 1999, as well as Rizalka and Thrax's variations of Duviri. Something of note here, the other Archons aren't themselves characterized as demonic, even though they were all created by the same person, Era, around the same time, with Zul in fact leading this group of 4 sentient beasts, the others being Boreal, Amar, and Nira. Although being characterized as demonic in the official wiki, I have yet to be able to find in-game dialogue saying those exact words, so while it is possible I missed it, and please, feel free to offer the dialogue if you remember what was said and where. But I feel it is an important thing to include here, that there could be some aspect of the lore that was misinterpreted. I'm just going off the official wiki at the moment. If that changes in the future, I will definitely make an update of some sort. But in the end, will there be a connection? I imagine at some point we will make it to Tau in the present to deal with whatever is left of Narmer, as well as whatever it is Pazul has been gathering resources to create, one of the main themes of the Archon hunts, essentially tying the entire Warframe narrative together in a shockingly cohesive way. If that is the way they end up going. But of course, these are just my thoughts on the matter and where the current narrative is headed. I suppose we'll see how close any of these prognostications actually come. But with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed today's video and it got you thinking about the implications and potential consequences our future endeavors may bring. And I'm curious to know, what do you think? Are you excited or scared? For me, these Entrati side stories just can't come soon enough. At any rate, I hope you all have a wonderful day today, a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll talk at you all in the next one. Take care, everybody.